Good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this September 21st version of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon. Glad you're here with us this morning. Don't forget we're on Roku. How are you?
No, I'm good.
Good.
I'm good. What about the EOA Live Network?
That's right.
Right? That's what we're gonna
start talking about.
Calling all of our stuff the EOA Live Network. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Roku, the website.
Yeah.
And the streaming platform.
Yeah.
Spotify, iTunes.
Yeah. It's really a kind of a distribution network, not the way somebody would think of a typical traditional TV network. But yeah. So yeah.
Today's first Friday. But the weekend don't matter this weekend. It's a busy weekend. Busy weekend. We don't even have we have Pendleton and Ridgeview tomorrow from Pendleton.
Yeah.
But outside of that, we don't have a stream this weekend either. Yeah, let's do sports.
Okay, let's do it.
AM Sports Report brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress. Big Red Rocking Chair on Elm, off Adams and LeGrand. Go see the Daggett family. They have a whole bunch of American-made furniture. I mean, it's all super nice. Go check out their showroom. The Northwest Furniture and Mattress. They want to make you comfortable in your own home. Sports. LHS girls soccer is in Baker today. JV kicks off at 4, varsity at 5:30. Cross country is at the Hawk Invite in Walla Walla tomorrow, and that starts at 3 p.m. Volleyball is at home tonight for LHS. Those games start 4, 5, 6:30. So JV2, JV, varsity, 4, 5, 6:30. And then they'll play North Marion this weekend over there in a tournament. Football, LHS is on the road versus Malala. But like I said, we are going to be streaming the Pendleton Ridgeview game. I still don't know where Ridgeview is. Pardon me for that, but I have no idea what level they are. But that'll kick off at 7, so the live stream will start at about 6:30 from Pendleton. EOU Volleyball swept C of I, their travel partner, last night over there. I made a mistake yesterday. I thought that game was here. That game was over there in Caldwell. 3 sets to nothing. They're back on they've won 2 in a row. They're coming into this weekend where they'll have some home games, and we'll talk about that right now. EOU Volleyball will play tomorrow at 2 p.m. against Walla Walla, and then EOU women's soccer and men's soccer both play 4 and 6:30 against Rocky Mountain. And then we'll take you to Saturday, where it's a weird day for sports. We kind of flip-flop. Volleyball is going to play at 3. Okay, volleyball is going to play at 3, and then football is going to play at 5, which normally football starts at 1. Football will be at 5. Community Stadium against Rocky Mountain. The Mounties are 0-3. They're looking to get their first win of the year, and this is going to be a good game. It should be close. We should compete in this game. I started releasing the senior athlete interviews. I put out the first one yesterday, so if you're a senior athlete or a family member, be on the lookout for those because they're going to start coming out. And, yeah, that's all I got. This AM Sports Report brought to you by Northwest Furniture and Mattress.
All righty.
Good.
Good. Well, let's take a look outside. And
Rum dog.
Yeah, rainy. And I didn't capture the weather report this morning. We had too much going on here before the show. So I'm not sure. I mean, I was up at Anthony Lakes yesterday for a conference, and it snowed while I was up there. It was just the craziest thing. Yeah, it was for the OTEC Power Summit. It's kind of an economic summit thing that they do, and they had to get your food. You had to go outside. So that was a little. They had some tents that you would go under, but when we were out getting our food, it was, I don't know, I'll bet it was 40, 35 degrees. It was like cold.
It's getting right. John Colby says Ridgeview is a Redmond school.
Okay. Yeah.
I kind of figured it was somewhere in that area because if it was on the west side or, like down I-5, I would probably know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that area's grown so fast. There's so many more schools in that Central Oregon area than there was when I was in school. So many more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ridgeview, Pendleton tomorrow, 6:30, kickoff at 7.
Yep. So yeah, Tanya and I are making the trip over to do that game. We don't have a play-by-play person. If you know somebody from Pendleton area that wants to call that game, we'd be happy to connect with them. So this morning we have Holly Walker from Remax Real Estate is going to be with us, and she'll be right with us. She'll be with us when we come back right after this. All right, we're back with Holly Walker. How are you?
Good.
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 And Holly is with Remax Real Estate Team,
Yes.
downtown LeGrand,
1214 and a half Adams.
1214 and a half Adam. You guys are right across the street from the old Umpqua Bank building,
Which is now Valley Insurance.
which is now Valley Insurance, and Valley Insurance is one of our sponsors too. So,
Cool.
yeah. Well, cool. Well, I know the market is kind of how it has been for a while now, right? There's
Busy.
not, yeah,
There's not a lot of inventory
not a lot of inventory. Interest rates are,
creeping up.
yeah. So it's just kind of what it is. But everybody, I mean, but there are still people that are selling their homes and
Mhm.
buying homes, and
Listed 2 of them Monday.
yeah.
So
So, talk to me about, you and I had a brief conversation yesterday about the importance of keeping up on the maintenance of a
Mhm.
house and
Absolutely.
how, yeah. And this is probably, for me, this is, I mean, I'm just like everybody, I'm sure. Well, I mean, sure, there's lots of people like me, put it that way, where, raking all of the leaves at the end of fall seems like an endless process. Why don't you talk to us about some of the importance of why are those things important?
well, they can cause damage to your
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you let your gutters fill up, which I've become very adept at cleaning out my own gutters.
Yeah.
They lay around on wooden decks and they cause dry rot. Moisture causes what they call dry rot. Keeping your leaves raked up off the lawn also helps your grass grow. So
Yeah.
sometimes you need a little more for mulch, but not always.
So then what can you do to protect like wood features from,
A good water seal.
okay. Yeah.
And that's something I was dealing with over the last couple of weeks. I decided to pressure wash my deck and seal it. Now I'm taking out a big portion of it
Yeah.
because it's got dry rot. It's, I mean, I'm guilty of it as well.
Yeah.
We hadn't sealed it for several years, 3.
So then of course, how does, if you don't keep that up and then you go to sell the house, I
You
mean,
won't
talk
pass
to me
the-
how that,
Yeah,
how that process works.
everybody is encouraged to have a whole house home inspection now.
Yeah.
And the reason I encourage them personally is because people need to know what they're buying.
Right.
And the inspector is hired to find the problems. That's his job or her job, whoever you hire. They will find everything bad with the house. And when we first started doing home inspections, it was like deal killers. but a lot of it was in presentation and how you present your home inspection to people.
Yeah.
It's a need to know. You need to know what's going on with that house. Now, whether you decide at that point in time to go forward with the purchase, that's the buyer's call.
Yeah.
You can negotiate out repairs with a seller oftentimes. And, sometimes it's a surprise to a seller as to what's going on in their home because things sneak up.
Yeah.
So gutters are very important in this area, in my opinion. Even though some people don't agree with that. I've actually had a client in Baker City remove his because he's like, we have too much snow in Eastern Oregon to maintain those gutters. So they get plugged with ice.
So keeping the gutters cleaned is important also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. For somebody who's 5'2" and scared of heights, that was a little intimidating the first time I climbed up on my roof, but there was nobody else to do it and it needed done. So you just go there.
And I know this, a few years ago, I sold my parents' house back in Wyoming, and the buyers did a home inspection, and there was a crack in the foundation that I didn't even know that was there. And it had to be part of that negotiation process, or part of the process of selling the houses is like, you reduce, either you fix it to where it's being satisfied totally, or you discount the price of the house in order for that's part of the negotiation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's negotiations. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, that can be, you're right. I was like, I had no idea, but that was the inspector's job, was to find those problems.
Yeah. I had a friend at my house one day and I said, I need to go under my house. And he looks at me, he's go, I'm not going under your house. I said, I didn't say you needed to go under my house. I need to go under my house because I need to know what's going on under my home.
Yeah.
I'm the homeowner.
Yeah.
There's spiders under there.
When I was a kid, getting down in the crawl space was kind of a fun thing, but not anymore. It's like,
no, it's not fun, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
Know your home.
Yeah.
Know your home.
Yeah.
Not, and beyond just walking in and, okay, my beautiful recliners are from Furniture West and I'm going to kick back and watch my TV, but no, know your home.
Yeah.
Go around, get to know it.
Have you seen any other surprise home inspection things that needed fixed also along the way?
Well, every home inspector is different. They're all going to find different things. And I had a house one time that I was told had all kinds of dry rot underneath the cabinet in the kitchen, underneath the home. Okay, so we'll get a bid in there. The buyer decided to walk away, so we didn't go get the bid. The next client comes in, wants a home inspection. I said, okay. Talked to the inspector, made the appointment. I said, please be very attentive to this area. There was nothing wrong. There was no dry rot. So, every inspector is going to find something.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
One of the weirdest things I ever seen in a house when we were doing an inspection was in the basement. There was a little, I want to say it was a sump pump, but it was breathing, kind of like the water was going up and down, and I was standing there going. And if you walked over and stepped one spot on the concrete, it's like really made it go up. I was like, okay, no, get down here. I'm not comfortable with that. It makes me uncomfortable. So
well, and that's really, that's really important on the buyer side of it. And
the sellers too. Oftentimes they'll go and have a whole house home inspection prior to a sale and make that available and do the repairs that are found because they didn't know.
Yeah.
So
when you have repairs that need done, let's say that there's, this is a fairly common thing. The carpet needs to be replaced or something like that, and so then part of the conversation is well, should we replace the carpet or should we just give an allotment to the buyer to change the carpet and choose the color that they want?
I encourage that because sometimes they don't want carpet anymore. Carpet's phasing out. I hate to say that, but I'm in the process of building an apartment above my garage and have been for 4 years now. And there's not going to be any carpet in it. I already have my flooring. It's not carpet. It's
Well,
I have
don't-
animals.
Don't a lot of houses in this area, because of when they were built, have hardwood floors underneath the carpet anyway?
Sometimes they do.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, both of the houses that my parents have bought both had, if you pulled up all the carpet and all the pads, beautiful hardwood floors
Mhm.
underneath.
Yeah.
I have a friend who his house was built in 1900, and he pulled the carpet when he bought it 20 years ago, and it's never really been refinished really well. So we worked on doing that this spring, and it's like, wow, that was amazing how it turned out. So
In the market that we're in right now, which is a seller's market, I mean,
to a point,
to a point.
to
okay.
a point.
I guess the question is in a more competitive market, is it, is there an advantage to having your house totally fixed up?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So if you're waffling on that question of should I change the flooring before I sell it or not, I mean,
It depends a lot on finances for people.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. If they can do that, I would encourage to do some different flooring if it was in really bad shape.
right.
So, but if your house shows really nice the first time on first presentation, you're going to get more money for your home.
Okay.
You want that first impression to make a good one.
So even if somebody came in and that carpet or that flooring or that whatever it wasn't exactly what they wanted, and it wasn't exactly what they would choose, but it was done and it's beautiful and it's nice,
Hmm.
and they can move in just the way that it is, that's going to make that house sell faster.
I believe so.
Yeah.
As long as all the financing, the peeling paint on the outside and dry rot and all that's taken care of. Whole house home inspection before you list.
Because that is like, from the standpoint of selling a house, it's a daunting thing of like fixing it up
Hmm.
to sell it.
It is.
And you're always that thing of like, okay, well, we're gonna have to invest $20,000 or $30,000 to paint it and roof it and whatever, whatever
And
needs
again,
to be done.
that comes to that home maintenance thing again.
Yeah.
I mean, if you maintain it on a yearly periodic basis, you're not going to have that hit of
Yeah.
that cost.
Right.
So
Yeah. Most people are just, they're just getting by. Yeah.
I know.
What has to be done legally? Like what
For
legally
financing,
has
you
to
don't
be
want
done?
any peeling paint.
No, but I mean, like, what does it say? Like, hey, here's what has to be inspected in a house before you can sell it. Is there a list of things that
The inspector has a list, that they look
so
for.
They,
Lenders have a list too. If they want a certain type of loan, FHA, VA, there can be no peeling paint, no dry rot. Oftentimes, I think FHA is pretty solid on having a pest
and it's
dry
all
rot.
based on the person loaning the money that
Mhm.
makes the
bank.
list. Like, hey, if I'm going to give you $500,000 to buy a house, you aren't going to buy a house that is
Has no foundation and the paint's peeling
Right.
off and the roof's caving in. Yeah, they're not going to give you money for that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But if you're just selling it for cash,
Yeah.
you want to sell me a barn that's ready to fall down and I want to buy it.
Or owner contract. There's always those. Sometimes they're very few and far between anymore because people don't want to be a bank. They normally, like you said, things are tight. They want their money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
Interesting.
yeah, it is. And so then I guess the moral of the story is as much maintenance as you can keep up on.
take
along
care
the
of your
way.
stuff like
Yeah.
you own it.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
Because you do own it.
You do own it. Take care of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
And- honestly, some of that stuff has come back and slapped me in the last few years that, I stomp around my house some days just,
Yeah.
because I'm
Good. Well,
doing it.
Holly, thank you
Thank
for
you.
jumping in with us this morning.
Yep.
Appreciate it. So
Thank you for having me.
yeah, we'll be right back. All right, we're back.
Back.
Yeah.
You want something that nobody ever talks about? What's going on in Ukraine? Is there still a war?
Oh yeah. Well, I follow it, but I watch national news.
I don't.
I know you don't.
And nobody talks about it.
Oh, there's lots of conversation about it.
Not in my circle, not around here.
No, but I mean, the Ukraine president was at the what's the United Nations Assembly a couple of weeks ago, or maybe this last week, and so it's the same conversation. There's a lot of conversation about it because we've assisted, the United States has assisted an enormous amount of money.
I see the memes. I mean, I see like people are constantly saying we give more money to Ukraine than we did to Hawaii and this and that. And, but there's nothing that I follow ever talks about what's actually going on.
Well, and I think it's kind of funny because you're not unusual. Everybody is kind of, I mean, you follow a lot of sports and that's kind of your thing and social media. But I mean, there is, it's difficult for some of these messages to permeate wider things. Yeah.
Well, and that's just people right now, because I follow a lot of podcasts that aren't sports related.
Right.
And nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
And I follow a couple military guys. I follow, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I watch Rogan. I watch Theo Vaughn. I watch a lot of different podcasts, and nobody talks about Ukraine.
Yeah. Well,
it's weird.
It's still very active, and we're still spending a lot of money on Ukraine.
Well, I kind of figured that, but I mean, it's still, you would think that it's pretty important if we're involved financially. Mm-hmm. And yet the American people, I would say probably, I mean, I don't want to even guess, but a substantial amount of people in America probably are in the same boat as me.
Yeah. Don't
know what's going
on. And I mean, I was just watching the news this morning, and just last night, Russia had missile attacks on several cities in Ukraine. That's kind of been the thing. So Ukraine has, over a period of time, they've been able to develop dropping bombs in Russia, on the homeland, in different targets, and so on and so forth.
Right, drones, or
like with drones, right? Yeah, and so that's kind of how the war has developed. So now, then, every once in a while, when Russia wants to strike back, then they'll fire off. Well, let's send a few missiles to Kiev. Let's send a few missiles.
Hit a button and
yeah, and I mean, and it's crazy because, I mean, this is a developed city. They'll hit high-rise buildings. They'll have,
I think we would probably hear a lot more about it if we were actually involved, physically involved. Because I remember during Desert Storm, Desert Shield, all that, that's all you ever heard about. I mean, it was constant. But we were actually in that war.
Yeah. What has happened is, over a period of time, the types of weapons that we are giving to Ukraine has escalated. So at first it was like, okay, you could have these, but you couldn't have these. And so then it was like, well, then we gave them Patriot missiles. Then we gave them tanks, so I mean, they had money, but they didn't have access to some of these advanced weapons. And now I think just recently they're sending F-15s, or they're not sending F-15s, but they're making F-15s available for them to use. And so then our pilots are training their pilots how to, so that the weapons that are being used have been escalated over a period of time.
Did you, speaking of those, did you see that F-35 that went missing? How does a whole jet go missing?
So the pilot had some
problems. Had to eject. Yeah,
he had to eject, and then it flew another 60 miles or something like that.
Oh, and they ended up finding it.
Right,
but still, an F-35 is a fighter jet. I mean, what did they say? An $8 million or $80 million?
Yeah, it's an advanced. I mean, I don't know what it.
It's like top of the line, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's more like.
It's an 80
500
million.
million.
No, it's
80?
it's 80.
80?
Yeah, $80 million stealth fighter,
Yeah.
the F-35. So it is a stealth. $80 million.
But even
sitting in a field in South Carolina.
But yeah, but the stealth part of it, the advanced technology, outside of the amount of money that is the value of it, that technology being available for somebody to walk up to and even take a picture of and sell that picture, it's just.
Well, yeah, but how did it take them 3 days to find it when,
yeah,
it's not like it's a little, we're talking a stealth fighter sitting in a field. Somebody knew about it right away.
Didn't somebody, you kind of wonder, it's like, didn't somebody put a tracker on that thing? Couldn't you put a GPS tracker on that to figure out where it was at?
And I guess they haven't found all of it yet.
Oh, really?
There's still some pieces that are missing. That's crazy. Like, somebody saw it go down. You had
to think so, yeah.
And somebody knew where it was at. So maybe somebody was just like, I'm going to.
Where was this at? Back
in
east?
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Yeah, somewhere. United States Marine Corps F-35, and it disappeared, and it was missing for a couple of days, and it was recovered in a field 2 hours north of Charleston. So it just goes down and nobody sees it, or do you think somebody saw it and was like, "Oh, I want to tinker around with this thing," like some farmer, like he's out there,
yeah,
taking scrap.
What do you think? Yeah, it's like he'd tie his tractor onto it, and
trying to drag it back
to the barn. Yeah,
hey,
yeah. And the Air Force goes, "Hey, what's this track leading these skid marks that are leading to your barn?" I don't know. Yeah,
$80 million space aircraft just disappears. And like you said, GPS, they had to have GPS on it, right?
Well, so what they call it is a transponder, and this is the last thing I heard was that for some reason the transponder was not turned off. Either it was not working or it was turned off. And so it's like, why? How in the world?
Sounds like an inside job. Maybe they were trying to. Because if you think about it, if you find that and you get a couple of pictures or a couple pieces of that thing, you could get very wealthy off of that.
Well, what I don't understand, there's just a lot of things that just don't make sense. There's all kinds of stories of pilots who have to eject.
Right. All the time.
Right. But one of the things that's on the forefront of their mind is making sure that their aircraft does not hurt
other people.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And so they will purposely delay ejecting until they know that.
Yeah, they're going to keep people safe, which is part of their responsibility as a pilot.
Right. And so then to eject and for a plane to fly another 60 miles or whatever it was.
Crazy.
It's
crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. What about, okay, so here's another question for you. And we should talk about this some show. How come in America they can talk about there being proof of aliens and nobody cares?
Well, I can tell you why I feel that way.
Why?
Because it's like how does it affect my life on an everyday basis? It's like, and what can I do even if an alien does exist? And here's something really interesting is the government, they did just formulate a real live UFO, but that's not the initials they use, but it's a UFO task force there is officially a part of the military that is going to start keeping track of UFOs. So, they are saying by formulating this task force or this part, I can't remember how they defined it, but they are saying, yeah, they exist, and we're going to start keeping track of them.
There's got to be something. There's got to be some sort of aliens. NASA's already said that there's planets outside of our solar system that can sustain life.
Yeah,
they just put out a big report about some planet that's putting off all the right gases and everything. They can test what's coming off of planets to sustain life. But why was it so taboo for so long, and now all of a sudden nobody cares? It's weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
I don't
if
know.
this would have happened 30 years ago, people would have been all up in arms.
Yeah.
But not right now. Maybe it's just because of all the other stuff that's going on. Like people are just like, yeah, it's an alien. Who cares? What if if a Bigfoot, if they found a real Bigfoot, people
Yeah.
would be up in arms about that.
It's interesting because Tanya and I watched a series not too long ago called Invasion, and I can't remember what streaming service it was on, but it was interesting because it was, the same idea, and we've seen that whole plot play over and over again. What happens if an alien, if the aliens invaded our world, and only this was kind of set in a modern day context, or and it stimulated that thought again of like, what would happen? How far out is that could actually, what would happen if all of a sudden you look up in the sky and there was a ship that was so enormous that there wasn't be anything that we could do to defend ourselves against that?
I don't think they have any interest in us if there are aliens. We're too dumb for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. They probably sit up there and drink their coffee and laugh at us. Like, oh my gosh, look at this. Look at the guy that's president. He's sleep talking.
There's another topic.
Like realistically,
right.
If there are aliens, they probably do that. I mean,
Yeah.
they're probably like, do we want to even mess with these imbeciles down here? Like, I hate to say it like that, but
no, but I guess part of the thought process of this movie was that, and they don't, that's part of the mystery is you don't really know why they're here, but part of it is like, well, what if they want our resources? What if they don't care anything about us, but they want our water? They want to, so for their existence, they need something that is on the earth in some manner.
They're probably, if there are aliens, they're probably way more advanced than we are, I would think. And they can probably, we can do it. It's just costs a lot of money. We can turn salt water into fresh water.
Right.
So everybody who talks about water being like a problem down the line,
mm-hmm.
we have the earth is 90% water. We have no problem down the line because we can turn salt water into fresh water. It just costs a lot of money to do it right now.
No. Let's switch topics just a little bit. And because it reminds me, Elon Musk, in a conversation recently, he said, we don't have a water problem because of that very thing.
Yeah, I agree.
And but at this conference that I went to yesterday, there was a tremendous amount of time spent on the workforce issues, people not being enough workers to fill the jobs that are available. And one of the things that somebody talked about is that at Tesla, they're not requiring degrees anymore for people to come to work for them in some manner or not. Their test for what somebody can come is, do you know how to do this? If you're like an engineer, do you know how to do this? And show us. And so
what a concept.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so that was, that is weird. That's the full requirements for, and this person who was speaking is like, in Tesla is, I think this is the second year in a row that they have the best engineers in the world. And that's kind of their hiring procedure is, can you do this thing and show us,
Yeah, but when it's something as advanced as engineering, all those guys have degrees.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Right. But a part of the question is not,
do you
have the,
I agree with that 100%. But I think that should be all the way down the line. I mean, hey, can you do this job? Prove it.
Yeah. So that was what. The other thing that was interesting is that the federal government is pouring out so much money on infrastructure, bridges, roads, internet access, fiber access. And so then there were a couple of people that were there that were talking about that. And from the construction standpoint, like roads, bridges, that type of thing, they estimate that they have 30 years worth of work. That the shortage is the contractor shortage is so short compared to the amount of money that can be spent, that it's going to take 30 years for them to even do the amount of work that is in the queue right now. That's
crazy.
And then the other thing that was interesting was there was a guy who was talking about Oregon putting fiber optic in Oregon because that's a big program that rolled out of Washington. And later on this year, well, in the very near soon, there's almost $700 million that's going to be invested in fiber optics to people that don't have fiber optic area. Of course, Eastern Oregon, there's a lot of access or a lot of denied access out here because of that.
Just out in the Tules.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that again, same thing. There's so much money that is coming out of Washington, it can't possibly be spent in the amount of time. So like this $600 or $700 million has to be spent by the end of 25. And it's like
they're not gonna have it spent.
Yeah. So anyhow,
well, the work shortage problem is just people are lazy. They don't want to work.
Well, and I think that too.
It's part of it.
I think that too.
COVID made it too easy for people not to work.
Part of it is there's some baby boomers that just like, I'm not going to put up with this anymore, and they took their early retirement. That's part of what's happening.
A small percentage.
Part of what's happening is that you have the cost of childcare is so high that you'd
lose money going to work,
right?
Or break even.
Break even. Yeah. So those are things, but certainly, I've heard it said that there's 7 million able-bodied men who could be working that aren't. Yeah.
Well, they make it kind of hard too, because like you were saying, the lack of payment, the pay scale compared to what things cost, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard to like think in your head that you're going to work to just, work 40 hours a week to just barely pay your bills.
Yeah. Well, and if you have an alternative to that,
yeah,
if your spouse has a really good job, I don't know, whatever the alternative, but
welfare.
Yeah. If you have an alternative, and that's kind of the path of least resistance. It's that certainly was the problem during COVID, the unemployment,
people were paid you more than you made working.
Yeah.
How did that ever make sense? We're going to give you more money to stay at home than what you made while you were working.
Right. And then to keep those benefits going. So even after COVID was done, or was on the decline, they hung on to those benefits.
And so, I don't think they're having any problem filling jobs that are remote.
Yeah.
People want to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People have gotten where, like working from home is like, I don't remember who was talking about it, but they said that their business was not work from home before COVID, changed to work from home, and then the people didn't want to come back, so they just stayed. Who was that? I think they might have been on this show.
Well, that's a huge thing that's happening everywhere. In big companies like Apple and Google and Facebook, and they're like, no, you gotta. They've realized that their employees are not as productive when they're not at work, which again is like, duh. Yeah. Who can't figure that out?
But big companies like that have had remote employees for a long time.
They have.
There's companies that never had a remote employee before COVID,
right,
that went into this new realm, and then now the people are like, nah, we're not going to come back to the office.
Well, and I tell you what, you compile that with we spent some time yesterday talking about Portland and the compiled problems of downtown vacancies, business vacancies, and downtown office space. So you have it seems like I heard like 40% of the office space in downtown Portland is vacant right now. Well, I mean, can you imagine investing $100 million or $500 million in a building and having it be vacant? And so,
I don't even think along those lines. I don't think about that kind of stuff.
No, but the point is that if you're a Portland City Council member and you're trying to figure out, well, how do we clean up our streets to where it's going to be desirable enough where people want to come back downtown, businesses want to be downtown, people want their employees to be downtown. I mean, I think it's going to be years and years before Portland is back to where it was,
I'll never live there, so I'm
Yeah.
good. No.
But the remote worker is part of that. And I wouldn't say a problem. It's just because that's the way business has shifted. Things are moving to remote,
Which is the way it affects us here is we have a lot of people moving in that wouldn't have moved in
Absolutely.
if it wasn't for COVID, just because of the simple fact that those people that worked in Portland or in California or in Boise can live that are remote now can live where they want. And a lot of those jobs, those remote jobs of big corporations, are big money. You know what I mean? And so you got somebody making $400,000 or $500,000 a year on a remote job. All of a sudden, they're like, they can live wherever they want, and they see Eastern Oregon, and they're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why not? I can go
hunting, hiking, biking, skiing. All within an hour of one place. Yeah.
Yep.
So
we lose some of the genuineness of the valley in my eyes. Kinda. I guess. I mean, it's good and bad. I think that we got to have somebody buying the houses, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, and the other good part would be at least they're bringing money here. You know what I mean? If they live here, they spend money here.
Yeah.
But the downfall is we're losing like the genuineness, like I don't know a better word for it than traditions.
Yeah. I mean, there's that definitely, but that is a plight everywhere. I mean, if you want your city or your community to be growing enough and to have family wage jobs enough that your kids are going to graduate and they'll stay here. That's kind of the hope, or that at least LeGrand
doesn't grow,
or they'll come back. But I'm just saying so you want your business, you want your community enough to thrive enough to where you have young people that are going to choose to live here. On the same hand, that those younger people they're not going to have the same ideas you have. They're not going to value the same things you value. And so,
if they're raised here by their parents who were raised here, it's going to be way more similar than somebody coming in.
Yeah.
And the genuineness about this valley is that the population hasn't changed in 70 years. And which you look at places like Bend, it's completely different than what it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Here's not.
Yeah.
And that's part of the appeal of this place.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part, because once people start figuring it out, which they are, then that's when it turns into something like Bend. And it goes from something pretty original and I almost want to say like what's the word? What's the produce that you can't spray? What's that word? Come on. Organic. Yeah, organic would be a good word for the valley. And we're going to lose that over time, I think. But then again, we haven't lost it in 70 years. So, I mean, the population of LeGrand hasn't changed more than 1,000 either way in 75 years.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. I can tell you that, I mean, I spend a lot of time in the economic development space talking about these issues. And
you know, I mean, there's a lot of people that are concerned about the lack of economic development, the lack of, you know, now I think that, I mean, I personally feel like we're on a little bit of a good note right now, even in spite of how the economy is going. There's a vibe, you know, I mean, part of that is, you know, the corridor. I mean, there's a new hotel going out there, the new Jackson store, the new, you know, I mean, that corridor out there off the freeway has been revitalized by Arby's going in, built, you know, I mean, there's a lot of good things that are happening. And even downtown, there's a good vibe. But when you look at the economic development, industry moving in or not moving in, big companies moving in, I mean, there's a lot of wins. I mean, JCPenney store being filled with the athletic thing downtown. I mean, JCPenney sat vacant for, you know, 5 years or longer.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
At least.
But whenever you drive down, you know, when you drive down a street, a main street like Adams Avenue, and there are places for rent, you know.
Which there still are.
There still are. Yeah. So I mean, that's a tipping point thing. So
I mean, I would say we're on an up too, but we still have a long ways to go. Like, there's still a lot of things for this area if we want, like, and I don't know what the goal is. Like, are we trying to grow? Like, I would hope we were just trying to sustain. I mean,
yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think the goal is for there not to be stores to rent downtown. The
right.
goal or things, you know. I mean, and
that's
so,
everywhere though.
Right.
That's not it's not abnormal.
Right. Well, that's not abnormal for a rural town like us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you go to some place. I don't know how I haven't been to Walla Walla in a long time, but you know, I mean, their downtown corridor was full. I mean, the store, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a select few. You go to Salem, there's places for rent downtown. All, you know what I mean? All the time.
But I'm talking about if you have a smaller rural town and compared to us.
But Walla Walla's what, 2-3 times as big as us?
Are they?
I mean,
they got 2 schools.
They do have 2 schools.
They're probably I mean, they're probably 20,000 anyhow, 25. But
it's like 35.
35. Yeah.
So more than double us.
Yeah.
So I mean, I wouldn't really put them in the same like category as us, just because they're so much bigger.
Yeah.
I don't think LeGrand's in a bad spot. Like, when you just look at things from the outside. I mean, I'm not on any, you know, I don't know what's going on with money. I don't care about that. You know, like the downtown businesses, there's a rule of thumb when it comes to a business, right? If you make it 2 years, you're going to stick.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't make it 2 years, you know, you don't make it.
Yeah.
But once you get past that 2-year mark, usually you stay.
Yeah.
And we've had businesses that have done both since I've been back here. Like, we've had a few that haven't and a few that have. And I mean, I feel like just in the past 5 years, downtown has gotten better for sure.
It is. There's a but to that though. The but is that we have less retail downtown than what we've had in the past, and we have more service in the past in filling those spaces. And so in a thriving downtown, and there are some downtowns that have a statute where it's like, if you have an accountant business or an insurance or whatever the case might be, you can't be on street level. You could be on downtown, but you could be on the second level. Yeah, you know. But a lot of the retail stores, and I mean, those are our friends and customers, and so I'm thankful that they've chosen to be downtown, you know, because the vacancies are worse than anything. And what's happened is those vacancies that are downtown have created an opportunity for those service companies like insurance, real estate, whatever it might be, to be on Main Street. And so, I mean, that's really good. But the but is in a real thriving downtown, those spots are filled with retail.
which I think like just our world is past that.
Right.
Like I really do. You don't even have to go to the store anymore. You can call.
Right.
Amazon will have it here tomorrow.
Right.
For one thing.
Right.
You can call. I mean, you can get on your phone and go pick up groceries or stuff at Walmart in 15 minutes, half an hour.
Right. Retail. I mean, the mom and pop retail store.
Thing of the past.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you think about the retails that survive in our area, they have some niche.
Yeah, some oddity, something.
Yeah,
you know, like the place down there that sells the British candy, and you know, it's got it's the secondhand store. I don't know what it's called, but they have like a whole shelf of British snacks and candy that you can only get there or online. Yeah, definitely.
Community merchants. Their feature is local stuff. You know, Blue Mountain Outfitters.
Never even been in there.
Yeah. But it's you know, Outfitter. I mean, that's sports stuff.
The bike shop makes sense. We have Mira, and that's why it survives.
Right, but they have So the retail has to have some kind of a niche in order to survive these days.
But hasn't it kind of always been like that in the downtown, like for quite some time, especially in a town like this?
Well, I mean, I think that historically, you know, they were a shoe shop, or it was, you know, I'm thinking of the Bible bookstore that was downtown, or I mean, they had some kind of
jewelry stores. There used to be like 2 or 3 jewelry stores downtown.
Right.
No, is there even a jewelry store in town anymore?
Yeah, LeGrand Gold and Silver, but
that used to be out in the mall.
Yeah, they still are.
They're out there in that same building.
But I mean, that's the only jewelry store that I know of in town.
That's in Big 5 in that same stretch right there.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
But yeah, it's the retail market has just been super severe. I mean, so then you go to, like, when you're talking about having a thriving downtown, you know, one of those things is like, well, sure be nice if something was open after 7 o'clock at night.
Right.
Okay. Right. Well,
after 5.
Well,
that matter.
How do you make that? I mean, if retail is barely surviving, whatever your niche is, whatever that might be, you know, I mean, if you have a bike shop, for instance, you know, and you say, okay, well, we're going to try and staying open until 8 o'clock tonight, you know, or on a night. And during that time, you have one customer that moses in and just looks at bikes and doesn't buy anything, you know, well, it's not going to be long before the owner says, well, I can't, I'm losing money by staying open that late at night. Yeah.
I think retail, though, it makes a lot more sense to be open in the evening than it does during the day, because people work during the day. They don't work in the evening.
Well, yeah, you would. But in order for that to work, you really kind of have to have, everybody has to be open. And it's
got to be a standard.
Right. And it's the same way. It's like us starting a show. I mean, when we start a show, it's like, we're going to do this until we wear people out and they start figuring out that we're going to be here every time. And so, you know, I mean, let's say all of LeGrand all of a sudden decided, okay, we're going to have every Tuesday and Thursday nights, all of the businesses, or many of the businesses, are going to stay open until 8 o'clock at night. You'd still be 6 months before the public would figure out, like, oh,
they're open.
They're open on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings. You know, I mean,
so one of the other hard things for retail too, I kind of liken it to like food, to like dieting, like retail. You want to spend money local, and it's a good idea, but it's more expensive. And right now we're making less money. You know, if you look across the board, right? If you were making $15 5 years ago, it's not the same as $15 today. Trust me on that. But you know, like if you order something off of Amazon and it's a third of the cost, it's kind of like when you're trying to lose weight and all the stuff that's healthy for you is way more expensive. You know what I mean? It's hard.
It is. And my dad was terribly frugal I mean, we were pretty poor though. And so I guess I'm over a period of time, I'm less concerned about, I will spend more money on something if I know that it's local. I finally got my head around the fact that that's an okay thing to do.
I think to an extent.
To an extent.
You
Right.
can only do what's within your means.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. I tell you what, it's crazy for me is just the price of a fast food hamburger. And I know you don't eat fast food,
No.
but I mean, you can't go through the drive-through anymore without spending $7 or $8 on a hamburger. And
Well, I mean, that compares to a sit-down place. You
right,
can't
and
get
that's
a sit-down
what
burger for
that's
less
what
than
I'm saying.
15.
I mean, that's where I'm getting to is that see it in pre-COVID. I mean, if you went to Nell's or you went to a Becky's Burger Wagon or some place that just built a custom hamburger house down the street, you could expect that you're gonna pay more for that burger than what you would going through McDonald's or whatever the case might be. Well, but you're going to get a burger that is handmade, I mean, there's value to that burger. Yes, it's more expensive, but there's value to that burger.
It costs them more to make it.
Right.
'cause it has better
Right. And so,
ingredients.
right. Well, what's happened now is I mean, for me being a value shopper, then I certainly will visit a handmade burger place, but on a regular basis, I'm going to go through fast food partially because I'm in a hurry and I don't, but partially is I'm getting the same amount of food for less. That still matters to me. Well, that's going away. I mean, the other day Tanya and I got 2 6-inch sandwiches from Subway and it was almost $15 for those 2 sandwiches. And then I'm comparing it to, it's like, well, we could have spent $15 on sandwiches at the sub shop downtown and had twice the meal for the same amount of money. So the fast food places, their prices are increasing so much that
I think
whatever
sit-down
advantage
places
they
have increased right along with them. You can't get a burger in town at a place like
to some
next
degree.
door for less than $15.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can get a burger for less than $15 at McDonald's.
Yeah. But right. Well, I mean, I don't. Yeah. But I mean, to me, the prices have escalated. The fast food prices have gone up faster.
Oh, for sure. When I was a kid, you could get a meal at McDonald's for $3.
Yeah.
Fries, a drink, and a burger.
Yeah. I guess the bottom line is if I'm going to spend $15 on a burger, I'm going to have it, it's like that. The value proposition of me shopping for burgers has kind of gone out of the road.
Oh,
Yeah.
we live in a crazy world.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how the way things are. And the minimum wage, I don't even know what minimum wage is. $13, $14, somewhere around there. $14. Everything's so expensive, even rent alone. You could barely pay your rent making $14 an hour.
Yeah.
And that's just your rent.
Right.
It's so crazy. Like, how do we go anywhere? Like, what's going to happen? Is the homeless rate going to go up and the housing crisis? You know what I mean? Like, because how do people survive if they're even if you're making $20 an hour? It's hard to live.
Yeah.
On a single family with a single income, $20 an hour.
Well, and and it just keeps compiling. It does, because those, people talk about raise minimum wage, and there's no doubt there's like, yeah, though, you are shortening job. That business owner, depending on who they are and how much money they have or what their profit margin is, they're going to have fewer employees at the end of the day.
And the people that really get screwed are the people that have worked there.
Right.
That they aren't seeing anything.
No.
I read a thing where it says, like, there's a guy that was working at this company for like 15 years, and somebody that got hired was making more than him.
Yeah.
That just got hired. just because minimum wage.
Right.
And so there's no way that guy's getting by,
Yeah.
comfortably. No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's bonkers. I mean, and so then you and
Crazy.
especially like if you have like the food industry, which has very small margins, the amount of money that they're making on a meal, whatever the case might be,
See, I think food industry has huge margins.
they don't. I'm just saying industry wide that now maybe if you go to beer or whatever the case might be,
Yeah.
but anyhow,
McDonald's has got to make a lot of money on a burger if they're charging you $8 for something that costs
yeah.
25 cents.
All I know is that okay. So how about the grocery store? Can we admit that their margins are 5%?
Well, I have no.
Yeah, they're very small. Okay,
I wouldn't admit anything I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah. So the point is that when you have a business that has a very small margin, and all of a sudden they have to increase the price they have to pay their employees more because of the minimum wages being pushed up.
Yeah.
Then
they have to raise the prices.
They're going to have to raise the price, or they're going to have to get by with fewer employees, and that
You see both
that
everywhere.
right, and so then that compiles the problem. So
Yeah, that's why you get such crappy service. I'm not going to say any like fast food names, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's not like it was 20 years ago. Like,
yeah,
there's no urgency. There's no. It's crazy. It's crazy.
All right.
Let's
Well,
get out of here. On this day, what is today? September 21st, 1827. According to Joseph Smith Jr., the angel Moroni gave him a record of gold plates, 1/3 of which Joseph translated into the Book of Mormon on this day in 1827. On this day in 1897, the New York Sun runs the famous "Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus" editorial. On this day in 1915, Cecil Chubb buys English prehistoric monument Stonehenge for 6,000 pounds.
wow.
He bought Stonehenge for 6,000 pounds. Like, could you imagine that? What it's worth today? I mean, it's priceless, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the 6,000 pounds. 1937 on this day, J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit is published by George Allen and Unwin in London. 1961 on this day, the maiden flight of the CH-47 Chinook military transport helicopter, which was like one of the most important pieces of equipment in modern war history. I mean, the Chinook,
Right.
it's still used today. And
Yep.
It's super important.
What year was that?
1961. 2021 on this day, McDonald's announces plans to drastically reduce plastic in its Happy Meals by 2025. Did you know that Happy Meals are one of the largest toy distributors in the world? Happy Meal toys used to be cool.
Right.
I don't know about nowadays, but like they had a Dalmatian set. My mom collected the whole thing. Pokemon. I mean, they had cool toys back in the days. The number one movie in America on this day in 2003. Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Johnny Depp, Antonio Banderas, Salma Hayek. It was a good movie.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then the quote for the day. Life is difficult because we don't appreciate the things that come easily. Life is difficult because we don't appreciate the things that come easily. That's it.
Yep.
Tomorrow, 6:30, kickoff at 7, Pendleton and Ridgeview right here on EO Alive. And like I said, there's a plethora of EOU events happening this weekend, kicking off tomorrow at 2 p.m. with volleyball against Walla Walla. There's soccer after that, men's and women's. There's volleyball on Saturday. There's a football game at 5 on Saturday, and then there's a soccer game at 4:30 on Sunday.
Night football on Saturday. I mean,
Yeah, evening. I mean, we
Evening
won't
football.
get quite to the lights, but it'll be
Yeah,
close. Well, maybe like the last quarter.
yeah, and
I love it.
That's fun. Yeah.
And then right after that, on tomorrow night, there's night soccer, which is
Oh, that'd be cool.
I just like the evening better because it's cooler.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to be down there on that turf
Yeah.
when it's not even when it's 75 out. That turf you're looking at 90 probably.
Wow.
85, 90. It's a big difference because the little turf turds is what we call them.
Yeah.
Little rubber pieces. They hold all the heat.
Wow.
And so it just gets burning up hot. But it'll be a good weekend for sports here. LeGrand football's in Malala. We need a win tomorrow. We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a league game, so it's not super important. But a win going into league would be nice for confidence and to get rolling on the right track.
All righty. Thanks, Eastern Oregon.
See you Tuesday.
Yep.